Chairman. You know, the U.S. economy has actually shrunk in the first part of this year. The liberal economic policies of this administration, which includes the most draconian overreach of the regulator agencies that have occurred in my lifetime, have absolutely served to destroy this economy. This administration is failing the very people it champions, the middle class, the working middle class it claims to champion. I can tell you from my trips home that bankers, farmers, manufacturers, doctors, retailers, anybody that I talk to tells me the #1 issue in Washington is not their dysfunction, not their gridlock, but the effects of this dramatic and combative and punitive overreach of federal regulators. We've created the fourth arm of government, the regulators. They create more laws than we do in Congress. In the economy, our free enterprise system is the one that's being impacted the most, and the people who work in that economy. It's hard to underestimate or overestimate the burden that the federal regulators are putting on our economy today. We don't have the luxury in a competitive world to do this. Nobody wants to destroy our water, our air, our environment. And the people, in my experience, who do the best job of protecting that are the farmers. And they're the ones that are outcrying the most right now about this overreach on the U.S. Waters Act. And I have a question about that for Ms. Sheen. According to a recent study, a very respected study done by a national association, our regulation cost our businesses $2.1 trillion annually. That's almost 12% of our GDP, or $10,000 for every employee in America per year. Of course we want rules. We've had those since our beginning. Of course we want regulation. But this dramatic overreach is killing American business and our ability to compete abroad. It's just a fact that federal regulation disproportionately hurts small businesses. It takes 17% of small businesses' revenue right now just to deal with federal regulation. That doesn't account for state regulation. Those are just the economic burdens. The loss of productive man hours and associated drag on innovation and entrepreneurial energy, and the push to companies to leave our country for this very reason. These side effects and unintended consequences are unimaginable. When I was a kid working on a farm growing up, the ag agent would show up and actually help us understand how to comply. I actually worked in a dairy for a while, and they showed us how to comply. Today, those same agents are looking to put people out of business. The punitive nature is unacceptable. More than 40 years I've worked in the private sector. I've dealt firsthand with this overreach, but I've never seen it to be more aggressive, more punitive, more combative than it is today in the last 5 or 6 years. I've seen what excessive federal regulation can do to a business's productivity, profitability, and its job-creating ability. And right now, we have had, for a few years, the most overreaching impact on our businesses due to our regulators. Combating this enormous regulatory burden and actually shrinking it is one of the main reasons I personally came to Washington and gave up my life to do this. So I want to thank the chairman for holding this hearing. I think this is the single most important issue and poses the biggest threat to our free enterprise system today, second probably only to our national debt. Now, turning to waters of the U.S., Ms. Sheen, very quickly, I am very concerned about this. This is unprecedented. It's a radical assertion of agency jurisdiction, would have a dramatic impact on my state, Georgia farmers particularly. But this is a letter that I received from a board of commissioners of one of the largest counties in our state. These are not radical people, and the sarcasm from the other side that tells me that, or tells the public that anybody that disagrees with the waters of the U.S. impending regulation is ignorant and self-serving, and just the marginalizing condescension is intellectually insulting to me. This is a very well thought out letter. They have over 3,000 miles of roads in that county, 1,500 miles of streams, almost 1,000 miles of ditches on the right-of-ways of those roads, and 1,400 miles of additional drainage ditches that would come under the purview of this law. And frankly, the way the EPA marketed, you mentioned this earlier, Ms. Sheen, and promoted this rule in the social media just boggles my mind. This wasn't notice and comment rulemaking. Yeah, they talked to 400 people out there in 400 meetings, and then they promptly ignored most of it. This wasn't notice and comment at all. This was a political campaign that the Obama administration was running from the very get-go through the EPA, just like when they couldn't get cap and trade, they told the EPA to kill coal, and they did it in a year. Ms. Steen, about the waters of the U.S., have you seen other agencies behave like this in your career? You've got a long, distinguished career. Can you put in context for us these actions and the dramatic, broad-reaching impact with respect to this rulemaking?
I'd like to be able to do that more broadly beyond EPA, but my career has focused on EPA. What I can say is that throughout my career of dealing with EPA regulations, and I've always been on the industry side, I've always been on the regulated side of the issues, and many of those issues and rulemakings have been very hotly contested over the years. But what I have never seen, even from EPA, is the level of gamesmanship and deception that I've seen going on in this rulemaking. And for those who believe that there should be an open and honest discussion with the public, with Congress, an open and honest analysis on the front end of the cost and the impact of new regulations, it's frightening, and it's disheartening, and it's disillusioning. And no, I've never seen anything like it before.
Well, thank you. Mr. Kovacs, I'd like to go back to sue and settle. This is a question that I think bears a lot of comment and thought. I'd like to address how litigants are able to game the regulatory system by using citizen suits, and has recently been the case, work with sympathetic agent officials, sometimes past coworkers, who aren't interested in normal notice and comment procedures. Do we have any idea what the overall impact of these types of sue and settle cases is on the regulatory framework?
Well, certainly, just in this sort of dovetails nice with Ellen's comments. We went back and did an analysis of all the what we call the high-impact rules, those over $1 billion. And over the last between 2000 and 2013, there were 30 of them. Through all of the federal agencies, 17 of them came out of EPA, and most of them were related to sue and settle. So that's the impact. They're able to begin prioritizing the agency, and that, I think, is a much bigger problem than anything else, because they literally not only own the agency and their priorities, but they also have a court that's supervising the agency, and the only party that can actually intervene into the court proceeding is either the environmental group or the agency. We're locked out because we don't have standing.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm over my time, but I just want to make one last comment. I really applaud the chairman for conducting this hearing. I think we need to have further hearings on this. I mean, I will submit other questions, but I would love to talk about not just the EPA, but what the NLRB is doing, the CFPB, and other regulators out there. This is having a dramatic impact on our ability to drive a recovery and get people back to work again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I sure agree with you, Senator.